Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Because the truth is, there is a natural rhythm and there is a natural wisdom and guidance that goes, way beyond the ken of our brains and our minds and our intellect and our logic and our rationale. And we're talking a lot about that. In the New Earth, we're really talking about using all of us, but a part of us that we have maybe not really brought into our awareness. Tonight, I'm going to be taking a particular piece of the teaching from Eckhart Tolle, and this is, I called it "You Are Not What You Think," because for me, it really says it. It's really not ever what I think and what I'm my own vision or my own picture. It really is something else operational. Either my ego's running me, or if I have my awareness and I'm able to not go with my ego, I am able to step back and be instead in a more spacious, more gracious, more peaceful place, and I am closer to my authentic self in that moment. In the oracle, not in Greek mythology, but in Greek times, when they would go to get their fortune read by the oracle, over the doorway were two words: "Know thyself." And had the searcher stopped at the door and taken to heart those two words, rather than whatever words were given by the oracle to, kind of fortune tell or direct their life, "Know thyself" would be the ones that one could come back to and never have to go back to the oracle's cave again. Because it seems that when you are following something deeper than your emotional self, how else could you respond to the things around you rather than having this movement, having this big response coming out? As Eckhart Tolle says, if peace mattered to you more than anything else, and if you truly knew yourself to be spirit rather than a little me, then you would remain non-reactive and absolutely alert when confronted with challenging people or situations. You would immediately accept the situation and thus become one with it rather than separate yourself from it. Then out of your alertness would come a response. It would be powerful and effective and would make no person or situation into an enemy. Because there's a part of us that when we disidentify with our emotional response, when we're not when we're not acting it out, when we're not becoming enraged or anxious or in fear or any of those other things that the ego would drag us into, when instead we stay alert and we try to read this situation differently. We try to stay open to something coming to us from below the chin, something else that would say, keep breathing, keep breathing. Okay, I can hear what they're saying, read their body language, see their face, be in this moment. How then shall I respond? What am I feeling in this moment? What could I say? How could I receive this moment? How could I just let this be all right and not have to fix anything? That when we recognize as soon as we can where we would eventually get to or remember to get to, somehow this is something that is for us. In other words, this thing, this unexpected moment, This thing that would drag me out to respond or to react? What if this was for me? What if this is something that is taking me through a narrow, squeeze through a doorway shaft, up a crooked stair, and out into a light that I might not have realized existed, to a whole new spaciousness in myself, if I didn't instead be willing to go through this rather than keep shutting the door to it and come back into my smaller self. That's what's being offered us, an opportunity to move bigger. Always something for us to do, something for us, not against us, calling us higher than we would normally respond. And remember that help is on the way, even if you don't know what to do, even if you just step back and just take a breath, take a moment, take a beat, Just let something happen here for a moment. You don't have to respond, no matter what the staccato attack might be or what the moment, this unexpected moment is brought to you. You don't have to just react instantly in rhythm or in a cadence back with whatever this is. You can just take a moment and remember that help is on the way. Your greater consciousness, your clearer thinking, your breath is bringing reinforcements and bringing something from below your chin up into your awareness, our higher consciousness that has access to a universal God. Have you not marveled at what unexpected courage, strength, resilience, wisdom, power has arisen in certain individuals in Ukraine? In the midst of the destruction of their homes, livelihoods, cities, threatening their very lives moment by moment. What is that? Where does it come from? How are they able to do that? When have you been able to respond that way in an emergency or in an unexpected situation where something you hadn't planned on, something you didn't even know you knew, comes out of your mouth or suddenly becomes clear? Oh, this is that thing, not that. This is, I could say this, and it works differently. And suddenly they change, and they're not what you thought either. A miracle happens. When we, one of us, in tandem, do something from a deeper place in us, take a moment and allow something fresh to come up. A question maybe, instead of a statement, instead of a demand, instead of an outcry. A question. I'm wondering, what would it be like? I'm wondering, where is that coming from? I'm wondering what else we could do here. I'm curious. As we use our spiritual practice to become aware of our ego that would just routinize and do automatic responses, Tolle says, it does not mean that you know who you are when you become aware of your ego. It means you know who you are not. It's an important step. You have to disengage. You got to pull the mask off that you've been seeing the world through and suddenly see more clearly. But who's seeing? That's who you have to discover. Because it is through knowing who you are not that the greatest obstacle to truly knowing yourself is removed. Tolle says nobody can tell you who you are, just another concept. It would just give you more information. And while and who you are doesn't require belief, because belief actually gets in the way of knowing. You're not asked to believe something or to put your faith in some other thing. No, it's the exact opposite. It's to pull away all of that and allow pure momentary wisdom to arise, pure beingness, pure essence, pure presence. It doesn't require your realization, this presence, because you already are who you are. But without realization, who you are doesn't shine forth in the world. It remains in the unmanifested, which of course is also your true home. Kind of like an apparently poor person who doesn't realize they have a bank account of $100 million in it. So their wealth remains an unexpressed potential. Think of it that way. You wander around as an ego. I do. When we could be a shining star. And sometimes we are. And sometimes we remember. And sometimes we come back to it. But more and more, when we notice the contraction, when we notice the smallness, when we notice the endless cycles, the cycles that keep us in distress or anxiety or pain or fear, all of those things, when we realize that's what's... Ego is operational. Ego is in charge. And all we have to do in that moment is to step away from it. Take a breath and let it go. I don't know what to do, but that's not it. I don't know what to do, but I will think of something. Or better yet, I will feel something. We talked about the $100 million. Speaking of abundance, Tolle has a theory about abundance. He says, whatever you think that the world is withholding from you, you are actually withholding from the world. Whatever that is. You are withholding it because deep down you think you are so small and that you have nothing to share, nothing to give. So try this, he says. Whatever you think people are withholding from you, like praise or appreciation or loving care, instead, give it to them. If it's that person in particular, give them the thing that you feel they're withholding from you. You think you don't have it to give? Well, then just act like you do, and it will come. Then soon after you start giving, you'll start receiving. You cannot receive what you don't give. This is true for all forms of good, all forms of benefit. Whatever you think the world is withholding from you, you already have it. But unless you allow it to flow out of you, you won't even know that you have it. Jesus said it like this: give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over. It will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. It is always, how big am I? How big of a portal am I holding open to receive from the infinity of the universe, from the infinity of God's love, from the infinity of all that is? I am already that channel, that portal. But when I think of myself as small, I have shut it down. I've closed it off. I'm a small little fist. Tolle says abundance comes only to those who already have it. Both abundance and scarcity are inner states that manifest as your reality. Jesus puts it like this: For to the one who has, more will be given. And from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. This isn't God doing it to us. This is our nature. This is our setup with the universe. It's quid pro quo. It's whatever we're willing to release. When we flow, the flow comes through us. When we halt it, when we hold back, some of it has to go somewhere, so we lose the little we're holding on to. Why? Because we're trying to staunch the enormous flow of the universe. And it will find its way out from us, just not as abundantly as if we gave it freely. Knowing yourself versus knowing about yourself, he covers. He says there's nothing wrong with psychoanalysis or finding out about your past as long as you don't confuse knowing about yourself with knowing yourself. Whatever you learn through psychoanalysis or self-observation is about you, but it is not you. It is content, not essence. Going beyond ego is stepping out of content. The stuff we do, the things I said, the way I felt, what happened then, what I did then, what I stopped doing, what I became then. All of that is content. It's story. Sometimes we say that. It's whatever my story is. But it's just content. It isn't who I am. He says knowing yourself is being yourself, and being yourself is ceasing to identify with this story, this content. Most people define themselves through the content of their lives. Whatever you perceive, experience, do, think, or feel, that's content. When you think or say, my life, you're not referring to the life that you are, but the life that you have or seem to have. There's something more to you, to me, than our machinations, than our histories, than our stories. How can we separate our perception of self from our identity? Tolle has already pointed out that when we see our ego, in that moment that we see it, oh, that's me again. I wish I hadn't said that. I wish I didn't do that. I don't know how I could have thought like that. He says we are not identified with it when we can see it at that moment, but we are still not seeing who or what we truly are necessarily. But it is a first step. He says the next step is to stop thinking. Can't stop thinking. That's a fool's errand. But to stop thinking, in other words, to disengage from thinking. If you can disengage from your ego, disengage from the thinking for a moment, and move into a place called wordlessness. Let's see, what is it called? Finding Your Way in the Wild New World by Martha Beck. She talks about wordlessness. This was a concept that I really got when I was reading her book. And what it basically is that we drop down as though, for me, I describe it this way. It's like when I'm up here, I'm above the water. I'm above the water like I'm floating in an ocean, let's say. And I'm above the water, my head's above the water. And when I'm thinking, I'm up here and I'm seeing out across the water and I see everything that I think is going on. But when I'm in wordlessness, I sink down below the surface. And what I thought was just the space that I'm in, I realize underneath is now a whole nother place with all kinds of other activity and all kinds of other things. And it's all in motion. And I'm not doing it. I'm not making any of this happen. I made all that happen up there because I was thinking. One thought led to another thought, led to another thought, and I took action. I wrote about it, I talked about it, I went and did it. I put it into my timer. I called, I set up a task list so I could do it tomorrow. But under the water, I see it's already in place. There's already things going on. There's nothing for me to say. Wordlessness now becomes observation, becomes presence, becomes the ability just to see. You can do that anytime you want. In any condition or situation, you just drop down into your breath and into your body and drop down below and just open your eyes. And as Tolle says, become alert and just watch and just listen. And be like you're in a fish tank and you're watching the fish move without understanding or trying to figure it out or explain it. When you go into nature, when you walk outside, just walk outside. Whether you think you've got anything very special around you, it's not very natural. It might be a manicured lawn, it might be everything set up in grass mode exactly, but it's nature, and there's birds flying, and there's butterflies, and there's things buzzing around, and there's things happening. There's already a show going on, and you're not running it. As soon as you do that, wordlessness. And unless you pull yourself out of it and focus on your problem again, or the seriousness of your life, or, start getting back into thinking again, if you'll just instead look at how green that is, and just let the green enter into your body. Let yourself be present. Tolle says, when we go into a forest that has not been interfered with by humans, our thinking mind will only see disorder and chaos all around us. It makes no sense to us. He says we won't even be able to differentiate between life, good, and death, bad anymore, since everything everywhere in the forest has new life growing out of rotting and decaying matter. None of that makes sense. Death is bad. Life is good. What is that mess over there that stinks? Only if we were still enough inside and the noise of thinking subsides can we become aware that there is a hidden harmony here, a sacredness, a higher order in which everything has its perfect place and could not be other than what it is and the way it is. You cannot understand it through thought, but you can sense it when you let go of thought. Become still and alert. And don't try to understand or explain. Only when you can be aware of the sacredness of the forest. As soon as you sense that hidden harmony, that sacredness, you realize that you're not separate from it. And when you realize that, you become a conscious participant in it. And in this way, nature can help you become realigned with the wholeness of life. I tell you, I have read many things in Christian mysticism and in Sufism and various other, the lives of saints and mystics. Mystics throughout the ages, no matter where they are, no matter what tradition they come from, they've described nature in this way that he does, and the true reality of being. And it overwhelms them. It sweeps them up and takes them and carries them away. And the grain of sand hold the entire earth. To see into a flower, and time stands still. Tolle says, another technique is to accept everything just as it is. He says, Krishnamurti, the great Indian philosopher and spiritual teacher, spoke and traveled almost continuously all over the world for more than 50 years, attempting to convey through those words and through his words, which were just content, as we've already said, words, that which is beyond words, beyond content. Those images can't be captured in words, but we can point you in that direction. Tolle says, in the latter part of Krishnamurti's life, he told his students, this is my secret. I don't mind what happens. Ta-da. That's it. I don't mind what happens. I don't react. I don't think an enemy has come. I don't think this is a problem to be fixed. I don't panic. I don't run. I don't lament. I don't get angry. I don't kick the can over. I just open to whatever it is and know already it is for me. And maybe my work is simply to discover how. How is this for me? What has come? What with this new friend to be in this ugly, ugly form? Accept what is. Tolle says, it means not to label it mentally as good or bad, but to let it be. Does this mean you can no longer take action to bring about change in your life? I'm sure you're thinking that. He says, on the contrary, when the basis for your actions is inner alignment with the present moment, your actions become empowered by the intelligence of life itself. Only if you resist what happens to you, you are at the mercy of what happens, and the world will determine your happiness and your unhappiness. The thing of it is that whatever has come is a doorway, it is a portal, it is maybe an escalator up to another plane of being. Only if you shut it down, only if you resist it, only if you call it bad and hunker away, you miss that opportunity. Another bus will come, another carriage will come, and the door will swing open and invite you in, and maybe dozens of times before you finally do. You get to do it on your own timeline. The universe is not demanding in that way, but also very patient. There is that sense of timelessness that we experienced in our meditation time. Because, see, the ego believes in time and uses it as a motivating factor to chase us around with it like a stick, saying, the window's closing, you better hurry up, you're already late, you're going to lose out, everybody else will get it, all the cool kids are doing it. You have to decide, act, go now. Have you had that chasing you around? Do you ever feel chased by that? Or I'm X years old now and failing, I'm falling down on things, there's not enough time to get everything done that I had planned, etc., etc. Time. But what is time? Actually, it's a continuum of units or packets of what we call time, all stretched out from one infinity to another infinity, and we find ourselves on the continuum somewhere. But what's the continuum itself called? The continuum. Now we got it. Life, eternity, now. The whole thing. It doesn't have a beginning and it doesn't have an end because it's buried in infinity. Infinity is at both ends. It's only the now moment. It's only this moment that we can act, that change can happen, that a new idea can occur, that we can express. He says if you look more closely through your own immediate experience, you find that there are not many moments at all. There's only ever this moment. Because this is the one that's operational, and you have to wake up to it. We spend so much of our time in the future, in the past, trying to avoid things, planning things, disengaged from our bodies, disengaged from nature, disengaged from our relationships, trying to sequester ourselves, trying to bury ourselves, trying to check off that task list. Oh, that task list has to get done. But there's only ever this moment, and your entire life unfolds in this constant now. Now. You're living your life only when you know now. Listen to this. He says the present moment is confused with what happens and confused with content. The space of now is confused with what happens in that space. We confuse it. The confusion of the present moment with content gives rise not only to the illusion of time, but also to the illusion of ego. In other words, we think our lives are the things we do, the things that happened, our story. We think it's the content. We think it's the color and the flavor and the expectation and the things that happened, the things I wanted to happen but didn't happen, and the things that did happen and I didn't want to happen. Think of it like seeing the world passing by us through a window. Things change as they go past us. The world goes by moment by moment, but the window stays the same. It's changeless. Only the picture, the content does. This is our now moment. How will we engage? How will we be in this moment? Form means limitation. He says we're here not only to experience limitation, but also to grow in consciousness by going beyond limitation. Some limitations can be overcome on an external level. There may be other limitations in your life that you have to learn to live with. They can only be overcome internally. Everyone will encounter them sooner or later. Those limitations either keep you trapped in egoic reaction, which means intense unhappiness, or you rise above them internally by uncompromising surrender to what is, whatever it is, whatever is happening now. This is what they are here to teach. The surrendered state of consciousness opens up the vertical dimension of your life, the dimension of depth. And something will then come forth from this dimension into this world, something of infinite value that would otherwise have remained unmanifested if you just ran like scurried down the road, just like you normally do. Some people who surrendered to severe limitation become healers or spiritual teachers. Others work selflessly to lessen human suffering or bring creative gifts into the world. Don't allow your limitations to shut you down or to keep you held back. They're meant, in fact, to be something to help you go deeper so that what you really are, your real essence, shines in a beautiful way, in powerful ways. I'm thinking of a man that I met when I was a Hospice Chaplain, and he was in a coma. And I was told that when I met him, his eyes were not open very much, but that sometimes they would be, and that there were times before I had come that he would be looking in the room, and sometimes looking to see who came in the room, but not moving any part of his body. But everybody wanted to be in his room, and I didn't understand why. And so when I came to visit him and try to minister to him in some way, his eyes were closed, but his countenance, his face was full of light, like a light was shining from behind his face and shining out. And he was very peaceful, and the whole room was full of peace and orderly and beautiful and silent. Only the sound of his breathing. And I didn't want to leave. And I couldn't tell you what it was that I felt or that I communicated. By then I had learned that I could communicate with people telepathically in a way, because my intention was only to serve. And so I would just reach out to him, and all I got from him was a smile. That he was at peace, and this was his life, and there was nothing to fix, and nothing to change, and nothing to add. And people who were taking breaks, instead of going to the break room, would come and sit in his room. He was healing them. happiness is only in the now moment, and it's only coming from within us. We're not going to get it outside of us. Some configuration of the right conditions and the right content, the right event, the right things, the right people have to be present. Because everything out here changes. Haven't we learned that by now? Nothing stays the same. We can't control it, we can't hold it. The only thing that's true is what we bring to it. Tolle says, accept the present moment, find the perfection that is deeper than any form, untouched by time. The joy of being, which is the only true happiness, cannot come to you through any form, possession, achievement, person, or event, through anything that happens. Because whatever happens, unhappens. Whatever comes, goes. Haven't we learned that? We're the ones bringing the music to the party. We're the ones bringing the food to the meal. The joy cannot come to you ever. It emanates from the formless dimension within you, from consciousness itself, and thus is one with who you are. We bring the joy, the love, the peace, the wholeness we seek. It can be no other way. Namaste.
Thank you for that beautiful teaching. It reminds me of something that I heard Eckhart Tolle say in a video. He said that he doesn't wait. So if somebody says, I'm sorry I kept you waiting, he will say, I wasn't waiting. I actually had a chance to practice this today because I went to do an errand, and the clerk at the store was nowhere to be seen, and there's a customer ahead of me, and I'm standing there, and finally the clerk comes up, and then the other customer had some complicated issue, and I thought of Eckhart Tolle saying that he doesn't wait, because it's so easy for me to get impatient and anxious, and what if I'd come 10 minutes sooner? What if I'd come 10 minutes later? What if I'd gone to do another errand first? But then that doesn't make me happier, like you're saying. Mm-hmm. So just being present, just allowing what is to be what is. It not easy, it's not easy sometimes, but I feel so much better when I am able to do that. So,
right, because you're the operational thing. You're living your life when, even if your schedule is thrown off, you're living your life. We're living our lives right then. So where did I go while how can I wait? Do I just unhook myself and sit over here and recharge the battery waiting to get back online when you show up? It's like, no, I'm living my life. So how then shall I live?
Right. Early when you were talking, you said sometimes we have to go through the crooked, little uncomfortable stairway or whatever because we might come to something really bright and light. All true, all true. But sometimes that crooked little nasty stairway is the thing. It is. That's our life is there too. We're not waiting. We're not going through a path to get to something that is really our life.
Beautiful, perfect, great catch. Exactly right. And therefore we can appreciate each and every step.
Yes.
Because we don't know how long the journey is. We don't know. It's not going to necessarily be a quick trip up the stairs and out into the open light, right? It might take a while. Right. It might be excruciating. It might be stupid. It might be wrong. It might be expensive. It might just, it hurts. There's just a lot of stuff that's with it, and we don't know how long it lasts, right? But it always is for us. If we can just remember that, then we can go with it more willingly
there's
and
only
appreciate
now.
it more. Yeah.
Right. Sometimes I remember that if I'm doing something that I really don't want to be doing, let's make a list, right? No, I mean, when our hands are dirty or it smells bad or something icky is going on or whatever, it's like, okay, I really don't want to be here now. I've been around this teaching long enough, and I've actually practiced it enough that I can reflect on it and thinking, but what else am I going to do with my life? This is my life now, and then I can immerse in it and And I often find joy in those moments. I wanted to reflect a little bit on your talk is you aren't what you think. And so if we identify with what we think, it's an insidious rat race, because it's not only are we not what we think, we can't be what we think because our thinking is in the past. By its very nature, that we're forming it as thought, it's a reflection about what happened. You can't think in the moment. You can be in the moment, then there might be some thinking going on, but it's not about the moment. But it's more insidious than that. It's not even what I think about the past, it's my assessment about what I think about the past, and so I'm really not present in that moment. And if I can go one step further, I appreciate very much the metaphor you used about when you're in water and your head is above water and you're identifying with your head and your thinking and all that. But if you can go into wordlessness, I really appreciate that metaphor. But I think I would like to bring into the conversation the use of the water metaphor as a way to be pulled out of our thinking also. Like if we can identify with a fish for a moment, fish is swimming, we're in water, but if we're brought out of the water just long enough to recognize, distinction, water, and then we return to the water, then maybe we're liberated of all of our blindness, all of our lack of attention of being in the now, being in nature. You were pointing at the very same distinction by being with the butterflies and the critters, and I think that sometimes we have to be aware that we're in a soup and kind of pull ourselves out of it and say, oh my gosh, I have been mired in my own thoughts and thinking and identifying with that as real. And then just take a deep breath, let it go, and then come back into a state of being. I mean, that's sort of Tolle's biggest lesson, is live in the now.
Exactly right. And just it's a constant, like you said, re-immersion back into oneself and back into everything's all right, everything is okay. Everything is all right. Everything is okay. Time is not real, only this moment. And if I pull out of my thinking and my grasping and my trying and my worrying, if I do that in this moment, I will receive. This is that vertical input that comes from our universal self, where the fresh idea occurs. What if I did that? What if this means this? What if, suddenly what if they didn't mean it that way at all? And I was suffering for no reason. What if, I could give grace instead of hell to somebody, right? And what if, I think that's our momentary up-leveling that we can do as we begin to practice more and more. We've always had control. We just didn't know.
And it's easy. When we throw so many words at it, which is a way we grow and learn, it makes it seem like this thing we have to work at. But in fact, knowing oneself is effortless. It is the easiest thing we can ever know. We do know ourselves. We might try to convince ourselves otherwise, but we do know ourselves. You referenced the oracle. I think the second message on the gates of Delphi is know thyself, yes, but then also to thine own self be true. Yeah. So, it's the consolation prize in knowing yourself and still suffering. You can know yourself though, but to your own self be true, then you're living in the moment.
Right, yeah.
And I have a question for you, since I love this mystical sense that you bring. When you unlearn the human part, the ego part, and you become aware of this eternal essence that you are, do you have a sense of yourself in an eternal way, a sense of who you are?
Well, first of all, I'm just going to say I'm not over the ego. Just don't think that. But But in moments where I feel freedom, see, how I judge it is I feel freedom, I feel joy, I feel love, or I feel peace. Peace for me is always the goal. And peace does not necessarily mean peacefulness around me or anybody else feels it, but that I can feel centered and feel this solid stillness in my inside of me. In that moment, I know I'm grounded. And I'm also in touch with something that will give me another way to see this, another way to be, something to bring to this that I didn't have. So when you ask, but I'm not focused on me-ness, you know what I mean? On me. And I think it's only when I'm in my ego that that matters, right? I think it only matters when we can access, I mean, for me, my goal is always peace. However I can feel peace, however I can feel love, however I can feel joy. Peace is the goal. If I get there, then I'm not concerned with me anymore, you know?
Peace being the absence of everything that's not peace.
Right, and it's a real solid, it's real deep and it's real solid, and it'll rise up to meet us right where we are when we call it forth. It's always been there. The joy, like I said, we bring the joy, we bring the peace. We're not going to get it from any combination of stuff out here. It's always going to be, we're the portal for it. So we keep looking out here for it, and that's what makes us crazy. That's what makes us crazy.
It's a strange question, but I'm going for it anyway, which is when you experience that oneness, basically, do you feel part of just some eternal oneness soup, or do you maintain some sense of like who you are across lifetimes?
No, it's not anything that elegant or powerful. For me, it's a vibration. It's just a vibration of being at peace. Okay, I'm going to stay with that one. Peace. Love is also another place to be, and that feels a lot more effusive. That feels like fragrance coming out. It feels like that. But peace just feels like a very steady state of just being here. It's a vibration, but it resonates up and down, and it brings awareness. And in the moment, I let go. A lot of the reactions that I had, or a lot of the things I was going to say, don't seem important anymore. It doesn't seem like it's not going to be helpful. I don't know what I was thinking. Delete that text. I'm not sending that, you know? It's like that. It's like everything just kind of falls back into place because I'm in my right mind. Maybe that's it. But I don't have a perception of identity in that moment. I just have a feeling of being present, right?
I am intrigued by how you framed it and how you responded. It sounds to me like that's the ego's portal into this whole conversation, that if you're really being in the now, that's an ego evaluation. Am I identifying with the eternal, or am I a part of a soup?
It's a thought. It's a concept. Yeah. That's the trap. And here's the thing. As soon as the ego, because the ego wants to live, it wants to be operational. It does not want to be marginalized. So if what we're doing over here is getting spiritual, the ego is going to sidle up to us and it's going to try to stand next to us and go, yeah, this is so spiritual. This is so cool. Karen, you are really doing it now. It's just going to try to sidle up to me and just try to make me feel really good about myself, because that's a good thing, isn't it? You know, it's like I see spiritualized ego all the time, and I hear people teach from spiritualized ego. I think we all do. Sometimes when the words are right, but the energy was weird. You know, it's kind of like that. It's like that there's some other agenda going on or something, and that's just spiritualized ego. It's so beguiling.
That's why it's a practice.
Exactly
it's
right.
Spiritual practice.
Exactly right. And also, you judge it by the results you get. That's another way you can tell if something, if something really, something just went awry or whatever. Where was I really coming from? What did I really want? Oh, I know. I wanted it my way. That's what I really wanted, but I acted like it was all about them, but I really wanted it my way. And then I realized I injected some, some scunch into it, and I just need to go and deal with it. I maybe make amends or just redo it or something if I can. Mm-hmm.
I can always have more questions.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.